A very good morning and welcome from all of us to Granada's programmes this Thursday the 30th of March. Before this morning's delivery of chain letters, over to Lucy Meacock and Steve Penk.
Hi, I'm Lucy Meacock.
And I'm Steve Penk. We're standing in for Richard and Judy today. Kate O'Mara's here later. She's playing Patsy's sister in Absolutely Fabulous.
Russell Grant explores the secrets of Stonehenge. We've got floral fashion just for spring and an exclusive interview with Chris Christopherson. But now, John.
Hi folks, say hello to Hilary and to Helene. They have something very unusual in common. Hilary's husband used to be married to Helene, but do they like or loathe each other? Find out when we uncover the world of ex-partners on The Time, the Place at 10 o'clock. Don't miss it.
Top obstetrician Robert Winston answers all of your questions about prenatal testing.
And Maggie Colvin's here with ideas for branding up your balconies and patios. That's this morning at 10:35. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm Lucy Meacock.
And I'm Steve Penk. We're standing in for Richard and Judy, who are away for a couple of days.
We're looking at prenatal tests this morning. There's a bewildering array available, but which ones do you really need, and can some of them do more harm than good?
Britain's leading obstetrician, Professor Robert Winston, is here with his advice. 01551 555 1000 is a number to call. And here's the rest of the show today.
From one dynasty to another, Kate O'Mara is back playing Patsy's sister in Absolutely Fabulous. She's here live as well.
From full-blown roses to chains of daisies, Leslie Abbott has the blossoming new look for spring at 12 today.
Russell Grant continues his worldwide guide to astrology. This week he investigates the most mysterious monument on Earth, Stonehenge.
Chris Christopherson has just chalked up his millionth mile on the road. The legendary singer-songwriter tells us about life in the fast lane. That's at 12.
We have tips on brightening up your balcony. Maggie Colvin brings the latest outdoor surprises at 11:15.
We've an early lunch with Lloyd as he tucks into a delicious seafood platter on his tour of great British restaurants. That's coming later.
And last but not least, we're joined by Grace the Spaniel, who's heading for the record books. She's here with all 14 of her pups. There were 14 when we last counted them. They've been all over our studios this morning. And here's the lineup. Now, having a baby is supposed to be one of the most joyful times in a woman's life, but many mums spend much of their pregnancy worrying whether the baby will be born healthy. 6 years ago, when Kate Cropper was pregnant, she had the antenatal test CVS, or chorionic villus sampling, to reassure herself that all was well.
But when her son Edward was born, it was soon obvious that all wasn't well, and Kate now thinks it was those very tests that caused him to be born with no hands, no tongue, and only one foot. But it doesn't stop him being a whiz kid with a Lego here. Kate and Edward are here with Professor Robert Winston from the Hammersmith Hospital. Good morning.
Kate, good morning. When did you first realise that something was wrong?
Immediately he was born. I was very well and had a very quick delivery, so it was immediately apparent that there was a major problem.
Did the staff tell you?
They didn't need to. I was with my sister who helped deliver the baby and a midwife, and it was instantly apparent.
So why did you think it was the test that caused the problem then?
I think the first thing that goes through your mind with something like that is thalidomide. I immediately ran through my mind anything I could have taken during the pregnancy. In fact, I took nothing, not even an aspirin. And the only intrusive thing I could think of was CVS.
So what had you been told about CVS?
I had been warned that there was a higher risk of miscarriage than with amniocentesis, which was the alternative. But at that time there weren't other warnings available.
Now your friend had the CVS test, didn't she? What happened there?
She had the test about a year after I did and was very concerned to have a scan to look at all the limbs. She wasn't particularly worried about the test, but she was worried about what had happened to me. And on the scan it was quite obvious that the baby didn't have hands or feet and the face was very badly deformed.
Has anybody in the medical profession taken on board, you know, your points?
Oh, I think it's a debate that's well underway now. It has been for at least the last 4 years. There are quite a number of cases that are possibly attributable to CVS.
It's a very distressing case, obviously, and a lot of women watching will be very worried, especially if they're pregnant at the moment and they're being given different advice about which tests to go for. What would you say to them?
I think, obviously, the test is a good test, but I think as long as women are aware that there is a debate and that there is a possible risk, then they're in a position to choose whether they want to take this test or wait a few weeks for amniocentesis.
If you could turn the clock back, how
Oh,
would you
without a
have
doubt.
coped with it?
I'd have waited for amniocentesis. If I'd known there was any sort of debate, I would probably have waited, but that is obviously the individual's choice.
But the amnio is left until quite late, isn't it?
It is. That was the advantage that CVS offered, that amnio is offered at 16 weeks and then you wait about 3 weeks for the results. So you're quite well into the pregnancy to make that awful decision if there's something wrong with the fetus about termination. CVS was then being offered about 8 or 9 weeks with the advantage of having only a week or so to wait for the
How
results.
does Edward cope? He looks very happy playing the studio.
Yes, he's a
What
very-
can't he
very
do on
good-
his own?
Buttons, shoelaces, all the practical things that from now on will be a problem.
How
He
dependent...
seems a happy little boy, though.
Oh yes, very.
I mean, how dependent on you and your husband do you think he's likely to become as he gets older?
I'm sure he will work out ways of doing all sorts of things that he needs to do, but it will be a life of gadgets. There's no doubt about that.
Well, he's very happy today, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a great favourite of his, the Lego,
Lego
isn't it?
it's very
Now,
good,
Professor Robert Winston is with us as well. What do you make of Kate's story, Robert?
Well, I think she highlights a very real issue. I think it's always a problem, actually, especially in reproductive medicine, where you're weighing up the risks, which are so critical, against the advantages, and you've already delineated those. That I suppose the crucial problem was that for a long time now it's been realized that to have a termination of pregnancy at 19 weeks is incredibly damaging. It's a very difficult decision to make, to remove a fetus which is moving and which they're halfway through pregnancy. And so for some time obstetricians and gynecologists have thought of ways of trying to make earlier and earlier diagnoses.
Yeah.
And CVS is one such technique.
What do they actually do in this test?
Well, what they do is they take a little sample of the placental tissue, and that seems to be completely safe. However, it may well be that when CVS is done very early, particularly before about 9 weeks, that there is a risk of this sort of thing happening. It seems that if CVS is delayed a little bit, it seems to be safer. There's still some concern about the risk of miscarriage, but as about 17% of pregnancies miscarry anyway, it's quite difficult to work out whether your miscarriage was due to the technique you're using or whether it would have happened anyway.
So what are the guidelines on CVS?
Well, the guidelines now, I think the first thing that you're saying, and I think it's very important, is that there really does need to be much more information given to people so that they can make properly informed choices. And I think that should certainly cover this situation and the situation of miscarriage. And I think also the tendency is probably to do CVS a little bit later. Personally, if it were me, I would be prepared to have a CVS, there's no question about it. If it was a member of my family, I have no problem with that. But I would prefer to have CVS slightly later in pregnancy, say after 10 weeks.
A lot of women are leaving pregnancies until a lot later now, 30s and 40s, so presumably a lot more of this testing is going on now.
Well, of course, and one of the issues I was asked to raise on this programme was the newer techniques that they were researching, and there are two really. One is our blood tests, which are being done right at the very beginning of pregnancy. First of all, to give you an idea whether there are risks judging from hormonal patterns, and also there are blood tests trying to be developed looking at cells coming out from the baby which are circulating in the mother's blood. And of course, in our unit, we've been trying to pioneer research to select embryos which are known to be healthy, particularly in women who are older and therefore might be at risk of having Down syndrome. So I think in the long term there may be a number of different ways that one would get around this, and I've no doubt that CVS is probably a very good technique, and I think it's actually far preferable to amniocentesis because of the emotional trauma of taking a decision so late. But quite clearly this sort of risk has to be very carefully analysed.
But it's better left until later,
Well,
is it?
absolutely.
At what stage should you have that test?
Well, I think the evidence would suggest that after 10 weeks it's completely safe.
What stage did you have yours at?
9 weeks.
9 weeks, so it was earlier.
Yes.
So,
And there does seem to be a link, as Professor Winston said, with early CVS and possible damage to the fetus.
so for women watching at home, would you, I mean, obviously you want the reassurance to know that your baby is all right. Would you go along with that?
Oh, absolutely. Opinions suggest that 10 or even 11 weeks is very safe.
Lovely. Well, Kate, thank you very much for coming along and bringing
He's
Edward
very
with you.
happy today, isn't he? He's very happy. He's well at home. Thank you very much,
Hasn't
Kate.
listened to a word we've said, has he?
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Edward. Thank you. We'll see you later, Robert. Thank you very much. Well, if you're anxious about testing and are looking for practical advice on this subject, Robert will be back later to answer your questions in our phone-in. If you're worried about anything to do with pregnancy or infertility, he's the man to ask. The number to call is 0151 555 1000.
After the break, Maggie Colvin steps out onto the balcony with her latest design ideas for spring. That's in a couple of minutes.
Hi, welcome back. Not that long ago, things weren't looking too great for Kate O'Mara. Work was thin on the ground and money problems were mounting up. But all of a sudden, everything's looking absolutely fabulous.